Play the Pokemon board game. See how long your marriage lasts.
Oh yeah, 強がって飛び乗って風に流って青空昨日を超えろ
Welcome to Padages, your critically nostalgic analytical tour of the Digimon anime. I'm your host, Jeff Ruberg. This week we're discussing Digimon Adventure 2020, Episode 5, The Holy Digimon, and my guest this week is a senior staff writer for Crunchyroll. Welcome to the show, Daniel Dockery.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem, glad to have you on. So, some questions I have as a first-time guest. So first off, how long have you been at Crunchyroll, and how did you get into the anime industry?
I've been at Crunchyroll for almost 2 years now. Ever since 2011 when I graduated college, I've been writing about pop culture online. But I'd never really wrote about anime. I was mostly movies, TV, Western pop culture. And then one day, Nate Ming, former editor for Crunchyroll, reached out to me because I was gushing about Megalobox on Twitter and asked if I wanted to come, throw my hat in the ring at Crunchyroll. And ever since then, that's how I got into it, and it's been pretty great.
That's really cool.
After writing about Batman for roughly 6 or 7 years, to be able to write about a bunch of shows and that are currently airing and franchises that I grew up loving as a child, it's been cool. It kind of feels like I'm stretching my legs as a writer.
Do you have any favorite articles over the past couple of months people might recognize your name from?
Well, there's two that I'm pretty proud of over the past couple of months. One, I did a history, kind of a rise and fall of Dragon Ball Evolution. Basically, I did a deep dive into what happened and how exactly that movie fell apart behind the scenes. And I also did something called Licensing of the Monsters, how Pokemon started an anime arms race, which was about basically how when Pokemon came to Kids WB, all these programming blocks and companies basically crashed themselves, against the rocks trying to duplicate its success. So I'm particularly proud of those two. If any of the listeners have read those two, thank you. They were a lot of work, but I think they were worth it in the end.
Cool. Yeah, I think that that second one is especially relevant for Digimon fans.
Yeah,
I'll have those links in the show notes. So what was your personal backstory with Digimon? Like, when did you come across it, and what parts of the franchise, like V-Pets, cards, toys, video games, or mainly the anime, were you familiar with when you came across it?
So I assume, like most people, my first real experience with it came with the anime, but I do remember the early commercials of the kids, the 14-year-olds playing in their basement, and it's backlit by flame and smoke, in the narratives Digimon, and you have a Greymon-esque figure shadowed by the smoke. And there was another commercial where kids were on the playground and Digimon. And I specifically remember that because I was into virtual pets like Tamagotchi and Gigapets when I could keep them alive. And I always kind of wanted to get Digimon V-Pets, but I had no clue if anybody at my school or if any of my friends played with them. So I never pushed for that too hard. But I really got into the franchise when it started airing on Fox Kids in '99, Digimon Adventure, or Digimon Digital Monsters, as it was titled there. I don't know. I just kind of fell in love with not only the fact that, kids that collect monsters and then use said monsters to fight is kind of one of my go-to genres, but I loved the mythology of it. I loved kind of how it applied a escalating power scale Dragon Ball Z-esque kind of thing to the kids with monsters subgenre. So it was really cool. And from there, I guess it's history. I've kept up with the franchise ever since then. So
if you started with the original season in 1999,
mm-hmm.
Did you ever have a falling off point? I remember you were actually asking about this on Twitter recently about when people thought it was, not cool to like Pokemon anymore, and when people thought it was not cool to like Digimon anymore. So I'm curious if you ever hit that point.
I don't think I ever hit a point where I definitely remember hitting a point for Pokemon, because in 7th grade, it was a very succinct memory of me talking to somebody about Pokemon on the bus, and then this kid named Matt, sitting in the seat behind me, looked over me and said, "You're talking about Pokemon?" With as if I was covered in spiders, the amount of disgust in his voice. And that was the moment I was like, oh, maybe it's not cool anymore. Okay. And I'd never really dropped out of either, but there was always points where for some reason or another, you like miss an episode and then you just never kind of get back into the groove of watching episode after episode. It happened in Digimon Adventure 2, where I remember the specific episode promo of like before they take on Black War Greymon, it's time to fuel up, and then like one character yells like "soup's on," and it was just the promo was just them eating. And I figured, I was like, I figure I could probably skip this one safely. And from that point, I don't know, I just never got back into the groove of watching them. And that was my fall-off point. And then back in college, in my sophomore year of college, and I caught episodes like now and then. I played video games now and then before then, but I remember my sophomore year of college, me and Zach had introduced me to one of my favorite franchises of all time, One Piece. And we made kind of a bet with each other, like, we're going to watch 100 episodes of Digimon now. Because remember Digimon? How goofy would that be? That'd be so stupid, right? And so we decided to watch it, and like we both flew through 100 episodes, and we kind of just had to like meet in the middle, like, that was actually pretty cool. Digimon's not bad. That was way better than I expected it to be. And from then on, I just kept I decided to go back through and fill in any of the cracks that I missed. Like, I hadn't seen the entirety of Tamers, and I rewatched and then watched all of that, and I hadn't seen the entirety of Frontier. Went back through and watched that, and it was so nice to get back into it. It's such a smooth franchise to enter.
Yeah, I have so many. My stories are so similar to yours. Like, I rediscovered it basically in high school instead of in college. But I had a friend who I also watched it along with, not like in person, but like would just chat online when we had watched episodes after we watched episodes. But we kind of started as like an ironic like, oh, let's watch Digimon, haha, this silly kid show, and then we were slowly like, but this is cool though, right? And like couldn't admit to each other because teenage boys. And also that memory of like when that first time I noticed it was uncool like Pokemon. I had it in 5th grade, and it was seeing these two kids bring the Pokemon. I think it's called the Pokemon board game.
Yeah.
Which I'm much more familiar with now. Like, I've played it a bunch as an adult, much more than I ever did as a kid.
Is that like the Pokemon like Master Trainer board game, the punishingly hard one?
Yes.
Yes. Who that is that people talk about like, oh man, like comedians like, oh man, Monopoly will test your family. Play the Pokemon board game. See how long your marriage lasts.
But yeah, so in 5th grade, I saw two other kids who had that board game in the cafeteria,
Yeah.
and I was just like, "Oh man, you guys don't know. This is social suicide. What are you guys doing?" And and nothing challenged that assumption. So to me, and I always thought of Digimon as like Pokemon was the thing that was popular and it was like okay to be talking about publicly. But Digimon, like no one else liked Digimon, so it was just like completely quiet and couldn't tell anyone else about it. So the fact that by that point Pokemon was too kiddie to talk about, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like at that point in 5th grade, I was on Digimon message boards and stuff, and I was like, this is my secret. I can never tell anyone about.
Yeah. Do you think like in a better world, it like instead of being like Pokemon at a certain point, like everybody thought it was lame and Digimon was just a step down from that. I feel like in a better world, it would have been like Pokemon is like somebody that's like listening to like all of like top 40 Evanescence or whatever in early 2000s, and then like Digimon is like, nah, I listen to some good My Chemical Romance deep cuts. Like that's how their relationship would have been. But instead, it was just like, oh, you watch Pokemon? Oh, you watch Digimon? Oh my gosh. Well, sir, you need help.
Yeah, no, yeah. The thing is, like, logically, coming from an adult's perspective, oh yeah, it should be this like series that is like 1 or 2 years older demographic wise than
Yeah.
Pokemon. But from a kid's perspective, like they don't have logic. It's just
Yeah.
it just that's just how the cookie crumbles. So now, like having gone back to it and seen other seasons and stuff, what's the favorite that stands out?
I think there's a difference for me between best season and favorite season. I think best season is probably Tamers. It's got a really good emotional core, and like the character arcs for each thing are for the characters and their monsters are still like pretty hard hitting. They still kind of punch in the gut sometimes. But I think my favorite season is still OG Adventure. It's I don't know. There's so much about it that I look back on and I enjoy. And even when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna rewatch Digimon, I usually want to start back with Adventure, no matter if I've like just recently rewatched part of it, because it's hard to beat Edamon and Myotismon and the Dark Masters.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna give you a hard question. Who's your favorite villain in Digimon?
Whoo, Edamon.
Good choice. Good choice.
So okay, so Okay, so they get off. What's the island that they're on? Because File Island is the one that gets separated by Devamon that they're on in the beginning, right?
And then they go to the server continent
Yeah, kind of server.
to find Edamon, or not to find Edamon, but to find the crests.
Devamon like reeks of evil. That is just like he's a bad dude. No matter what pop culture franchise you throw Devamon, they'd be like, "Oh, that dude sucks. He's awful." But and you think like, "Oh, after what could possibly come after Devamon? This dude, he had the black gears. He separated the Digi-Destin. He basically put him through like one of the hardest trials they're going to go through in this whole show. What's going to be after? An Elvis impression monkey. Okay, that's interesting. And he spins like you never really like he has this like dark network, and you never really get a grasp on how strong like Edamon is until like the last 2 episodes of his arc when he's just like bodying all the champion Digimon. And he's so like petty. He could like easily kill Datamon, but he just keeps him locked up in like his little pyramid. And then he gets killed. He comes back. The first thing he does is like a musical number as Metal Edamon, and he's just so mad. And then like he he just jumps right into the Puppet Monarch, or the little Puppet Mon section of the Dark Master's arc or whatever. And then he dies. And I don't know. I've always loved Edamon because he's so like he's not a villain that like he doesn't seem like particularly like smart or that he wants to control like huge swaths of the world. He's just like petty and loud, and I really like that about him. He doesn't like he spells no threat to like the real world. He's just like he has weird vengeance issues, and he talks louder than everybody else, and I love Edamon for that.
My sad admission is that when I was a kid and like, I guess it was during the summer when I was desperate for new Digimon stuff, and I had already recorded most of the episodes on tape on
Yep.
VHS. I moved to recording the songs on cassette tape, so I even included the Metal Edamon song in those cassette tapes. And why? Why, God, oh why?
Because it's a banger.
But yeah, I think Edamon like is really interesting in the like power progression, because you're like, yeah, okay, evil Digimon in this franchise are like scary, threatening. They're like in the embodiment of evil, or they can be even stronger than that and just be a goofy joke.
Yeah, he's just a weird jerk. I really like the evil Digimon in the whole franchise because they're even like it seems like it'd be really easy to be like, okay, they're all basically Myotismon molds. It'd be really easy to do that. Like we're like, oh, they're super powerful. They force the other Digimon to get powerful, and they want to control vague world stuff. But they try like to shake stuff up between like that and like villains like Enamon, where you don't think that they'd be a threat, but for some reason they're like, we spent a chunk of episodes just trying to beat them, and it's not going very well. So yeah, it's that's a cool part of the series that I like.
I like how we talked about Edamon for this long. We still haven't even mentioned that he's like looks like a human just in a costume.
Yeah, he's got little zippers around, and he's got the Monzimon plush on his side. He's just so weird, and his like Team Rocket Gazimon henchman.
So do you have a favorite any kind of Digimon?
Probably like Metal Greymon. I think he's cool. I really like my favorite like Godzilla villain is Mecha Godzilla. And I think it's similar reasons because he just looks neat. And I liked his cannons and his I also liked his English dub. Mega Claw, Giga Blasters. I thought that was cool. I don't know. He's really cool. And I honestly, as like a kid, I was super into dinosaurs, and I still am. But when he digivolved into War Greymon and lost the tail, I was a little bummed. That kind of made me sad. So, but Metal Greymon, I'll say that.
I can't completely relate because I'm not into dinosaurs. So as soon as he lost the tail, I was like, oh great, he's much cooler. but I respect that opinion. So who's your favorite adventure character?
As a kid, it was probably Tai, because I didn't understand Tai's flaws kind of at the time. And now going back and watching them, Tai has some problems seeing the big picture sometimes. But I think overall probably Izzy. Izzy is he's super I know he carries around his little 1999 like Chromebook wherever he goes, and like he's rarely the one that like takes charge or anything, but he's like a really solid bro. He's brave, he's smart, he's like funny and awkward. I don't know. Izzy's cool. Izzy's my boy.
So I was thinking of this recently that like Izzy or Koshiro in the reboot
Yeah.
has endeared me a lot more and a lot faster than Izzy in the original version of the show ever did. Well, so I'm curious, like, what was it like? A common thing I've heard people say is that he like felt like he was just a nerd, or he was like annoying, or he was just there to like give information. Did any of that like leave a bad impression on you? Or I'm realizing this question is badly framed, was just like these are reasons why he sucks. What do you think about that?
No, not really. I read an article a little while ago about why Tracy Sketchit is an underrated Pokemon character. Because he's basically there to like actually the cast. Like Ash Ketchum and like Misty are like, what's going on here? And then Tracy will like pop and be like, "Oh, as you can see, that Genghis-Khan is having hearing problems or whatever." Like he's always there to like explain stuff away sometimes.
Wait. So this is Tracy,
Tracy Sketchit.
the teammate for the Orange Islands arc.
Yeah.
His last name is Sketchit. Oh my god.
Ash Ketchum, Tracy Sketchit. It's like they made
Oh my
Ketchum's
god.
name and they didn't. Well, Misty is water and Brock is rock. Okay, never mind. But no, okay, so sorry, tangent. But so Izzy was always like the guy who basically was explaining the franchise to his friends. His friends would like rush blindly ahead, and Izzy was the one to explain the lore of the show to them, essentially. And I kind of related to that back when I was growing up, and people were like, Digimon's just a ripoff of Pokemon. And then I would burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid man, just like, actually, it's not. You see. And I had basically had that role among my friends, so I get Izzy. I don't think he's like, obviously it can get kind of repetitive if one character is there to basically be the Wikipedia article for the series, but it's I kind of get him. He's what other people might see as like him being like an exposition robot, I kind of see as a little bit relatable.
Yeah, I think in recent memory, like in both Try and this reboot, he's felt a lot more. I don't know, if the right word, like dynamic, or like his role, since they're not like always just in a group and he's always there to give information. Like especially
Yeah.
in this reboot, like Tai Chi has to kind of like reach out to him for information. So it always feels like, okay, we want this now. We want, it doesn't feel like unwarranted or like
Yeah.
annoying that he's like giving information even though I don't want it or something.
Yeah.
And in Try, it was like, oh, he's like a tech startup, not billionaire, but like, like has all this wealth as a high schooler. Like he's cool. Like it's kind of living the programmer dream.
In this one, he's kind of like the guy in the van. During like heist, like in the heist movies, there's always the guy on the computer like, you gotta get out of there. And this is kind of Izzy's role now, where he's the dude in the van. But I really do like him in Try, because Try is like so existentially sad, and Izzy is Izzy and maybe like Mimi are the only characters there that seem like happy or glad to be in Digimon Adventure Try, especially compared to the rest of them. So I kind of like him. He's really good levity for that show.
He also, for me personally, like the greatest emotional highs that Try ever hits is in that third movie where he's desperately trying to solve. He's the only one who can help solve a problem, and he's the only one who can help. So he like feels all the burden on his shoulders, and in the end, doesn't solve it in time. So
yeah,
that was great. So generally, what have your thoughts been so far about the Adventure 2020 reboot?
I like the fact that it understands that at this point, if we're watching a Digimon show, you probably get the concept. It's definitely, well, we'll probably talk about this more later, but it's definitely a show that along with trying to tell like its own story and like, kind of a revamped version of Adventure, it's also like picking and choosing a lot of homages from like the other series and the movies and stuff, and I like it so far. I want to see how they're going to put all of the Destined together. I'm very curious as to how everything's going to come together.
Right.
So, and I don't know, there's like some of the action sequences, especially in like the first 3 episodes, were outstanding. So yeah, it's been good. It's been a fun ride. I don't really have any complaints. So
sweet. All right. So without further ado, let's dive into Digimon Adventure 2020, Episode 5, The Holy Digimon, aka Your Holy Digimon is in Another Castle, aka Kabutarymon's Electro History. So the spoiler policy for this episode is that we're going to talk about everything that was in the Crunchyroll episode, including the next episode title and preview, but we won't be talking about the summary or titles for anything in episode 6. Episode 7 or past that, including the extended preview for episode 6, which is up now on YouTube. But I've already seen it, and it's basically the same scenes that are in the end of the episode preview, but just a little bit longer. So what were your quick impressions of the episode?
It's I thought it was pretty good. I liked it felt like it was over in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely like notice it's happened a lot of times with this reboot that I've been like excitedly watching, and then I'm like, oh, that was the eye catch for the commercial break. Oh, we're
Yeah.
halfway through. Oh, okay.
They for better or for worse, they fly by. But yeah, I was a big fan of it. I thought the monologue went on for a little while, but other than that, I
hmm
didn't really have any problems with it.
I thought this was my favorite episode yet. Like the first episode left me really excited, and then everything since then has been a little bit downhill.
Mhm.
Not steeply, but like every episode just like a little bit lower quality. And I was kind of just like, okay, if this continues, like this isn't like a optimistic vision of where things are going.
Yeah,
So now that we finally have like a foot in the ground, like, okay, here's where the series is headed. Here's what this season's kind of about, and like here's a structure for things. I'm like totally on board. I think it's really exciting. There are a lot of really interesting things set up by this lore dump
yeah,
that I'm really excited for. I think the only thing I'm disappointed by, and it's kind of a pattern with the last episode too, is that like I was kind of excited for this to be a full on kosher episode, and in the end it was kind of like it was really the lore dump episode, and kosher got an evolution. He got like a 5 minute sequence maybe.
yeah,
It told much less about his character than the episode that was like his focus in the original show.
yeah,
But all the characters are getting more screen time because they're not showing everyone at once. The characters that are there get more screen time throughout the time they're there. So it's kind of like we have already seen a bunch of kosher at this point, so it's like it's not as necessary as it was back then. But yeah, it's kind of the trade off.
The big kosher episode from Adventure was the Andromon episode, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit hard to beat that one because it was, first of all, Andromon was like impossible odds where he took down the champion level Digimon from the 3 episodes before, and then Kabuterimon, I guess, like got out of his melee range or whatever. I wish we'd had I wish he'd gotten a little more to do, but again, he's been around as like the second lead character since the first episode, so it's kind of hard
Right.
to complain. But yeah, I agree. I wish they'd gotten to do more stuff than Cidoran and Waymon and then Freefall.
All right, so now moving on to the recap of the episode. So we start off with Taichi and Sora. They just landed at Rainbow Mountain. They're about ready to get their info dump. And Koshiro, we find is, we thought maybe there'd be some scare about being inside a whale, but no. Koshiro and Tentomano just sitting on a bench inside Waymon. Like they're just chilling. I love this bench.
Yeah.
Like I joked last episode that like they as soon as Koshiro got stuck in the network, he found another bench, and then he finds one inside Waymon. I'm just like, this has to be a gag at this point, right? Like they have to be aware.
One thing about them getting Rainbow Mountain, especially that makes it different from different from the original adventure, is the original adventure, like they're doing some like Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers amount of walking in that series. They are just constantly trudging, and then in the last episode, Bergeron was like, "I can fly you like to the destination. Like we don't have to spend a whole season walking over there." And I kind of like that. I thought that was funny. I don't know if it was like commentary on the fact that they spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 episodes walking just to meet Devamon at the end. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like this is the why don't they just ride the Eagles to
Yeah,
Mordor answer? Like,
yeah,
just ride Bergemon to Rainbow Mountain. That's pretty nice. And also, it seems like they're kind of playing more fast and loose with when the Digimon can transform back and forth.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it seems like they kind of just transform back to child or rookie form when they relax their muscles.
Yeah.
And if they just want to stay in their form longer, they can. And also they can re-evolve back to champion or ultimate or champion or adult pretty easily
Yeah.
within a day. Whereas I was surprised going back to the original show as an adult and like plotting through when they basically can only evolve once a day. And once it's a new day, then they can evolve again.
I was about to say, I wonder if there's like a drinking game where you could watch Adventure and like take a shot every time Tai is like, Agumon evolve, and he's like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten anything. I'm so tired. I can't be the hero right now. Somebody else.
But yeah, the show is getting, it's breezing past those restrictions.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's good and in the name of a fun, exciting series and not
Yeah.
in the name of sloppy writing. But
Yeah.
we'll have to see the whole series before we know that. So I was surprised that I thought Taichi and Sora would get this info dump and then they'd have to like relay it back to Koshiro, but no, apparently like he's, part of the plan. He's getting the same info dump cast right to his Digivice.
Live streaming.
He's getting a live stream, the VR live stream.
His Anime Expo live stream is the the Digimon world lore. I'd watch that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking how to even summarize this lore dump. I mean, I think like the highlights are that there are basically 7 holy Digimon, and they fought a war alongside 6 brave warriors. They defeated darkness. So they're kind of vague about what the actual costs of that war were. So they say that darkness was defeated, the damage was great, and our existence was also ... Also, who is we? Because it's left ambiguous at this point if like all of the 7 holy Digimon were defeated or just the main. I've been avoiding saying their name. It's much easier with the like quote unquote Japanese the romanization in the official Japanese Digimon reference book, which is Valdermon, but I don't know. They haven't said his name in the show, so I'm not sure what the official romanization would be in the subs, but Varaduramon is closer to what they're saying in Japanese, so I guess I should say that, but that's a hot mouth. Varaduramon. Actually, it's harder to say in my head than actual out loud.
Veridurantmon. I messed that up a little bit. Okay.
But yeah, so Varaduramon was definitely defeated in this battle, but how many other of the Holy Digimon were also defeated is kind of ambiguous at this point, I guess. And yeah, they basically, as about as heavily as possible, imply that the six brave Digimon were the mega evolutions of the partner Digimon, minus Gatomon and Patamon's evolutions, who are part of the Holy Digimon instead. And basically, Varaduramon mentions that they basically, like, in their dying moments, had a prophecy of the power of human children and Digimon working together. And based on that vision of that ability to break beyond the standard evolution, basically they say that the laws of evolution bind every Digimon. But this power is something that can exceed that. Varaduramon sets up some kind of plan to get the Digimon, get the partners to come back and revive the warrior Digimon and guide them back through to their fighting shape. So yeah, that's and also as this is happening, they get like a 3D immersive VR experience and get to see the war being waged. It's very similar to that episode during the Puppetmon arc, the original show, where homeostasis possesses Kari and gives them visions of backstory.
Yeah.
But like while they're being attacked, while they're getting this info dump, Taichi and Sora are attacked by a swarm of Dokugumon, and then Varaduramon keeps stalking after they attacked, and they're just like agape, like listening to the explanation while even though they were just attacked. But anyway, so then Varaduramon, like when time's running out, explains like, hey, what you should do next is go to the Cloud Continent, find the Holy Digimon, and there you will meet the Light and Hope who fight amongst the warriors. The Holy Digimon. So yeah, and then basically the Kumon attack and interrupt things. So that's the info dump. I guess I should pause now because I talked for a while. I don't know if you have anything to say about any of that.
Oh, not really. I'm kind of wondering if like how big of a presence, like, okay, so they're gonna go there to find the holy Digimon, but are they still like, I wonder if they're gonna get there and it's like, oh, they're not like actually alive, like the like I feel like it's gonna, like, the power is inside you the whole time. Your Mega Digimon, those are gonna be the ones that like really win this war. We're dead. We can just like cheerlead. I wonder what's going to be the because if they get to like, because if they go through like they show us like the mega evolutions, which are really exciting because, you know, in the first adventure only 2 of them got mega evolutions, and that's kind of it's exciting that we might get a full squad of mega evolutions, but it's going to be it's going to be a little bit of a letdown if they get there and we're like, oh, how do we beat Devimon? Oh, these holy Digimon, they're going to take care of it. We found them. All right. Guess we did all this for something. So it's that's the one thing I'm wondering about is the prophecy to find the holy Digimon, or is the prophecy to like get there and get strong enough while getting there that, you know, you can beat whatever threat is coming up with your mega evolutions that we have prophesized. So yeah, that's the one thing I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I kind of, in my head, what I pieced together as what I'm guessing is going to happen, and I don't know how likely this is at all, but since this is something we'll get to later, like it seems like the show is really pulling the like best hits from lots of different Digimon, different series, and I'm getting strong hints of you've seen Frontier, right? So when they find Seraphimon, he's been weakened, and as soon as they find him, he's defeated. So, and then is reborn as an egg, and then that egg, Patamon, follows him around for the rest of the season. That seems like something either they get to the Holy Digimon are eggs, and then they have to bring Takaru and Hikari in to help raise those eggs, or maybe they're alive and they're defeated quickly, and then they're reborn as eggs, and then Takaru and Hikari get recruited or something.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm auto-completing my mind as a probability. but that would kind of balance the fact that like there are still these holy Digimon out there with some answers that you need to still seek out right now, but soon enough there won't be anyone to help out. They
Yeah.
can't resort to someone else coming in to help defeat Devimon. It's kind of my hope. I really like the reframing of the partner Digimon as reincarnations of ancient warriors.
Mhm.
Like to me, it adds a lot of like personality to them and gives them backstory that like gives them agency beyond just being basically the like shadows of these kids,
Mhm.
which they never fully were either. So it's like this feels like a more consistent, like they are characters on their own. They have all these, they don't quite have the memories of that yet, but they have enough to look at that backstory and then kind of cry because it makes them nostalgic. So it makes them feel more like well-rounded characters. And I'm kind of hopeful to see if that plays out more.
Yeah, I think on one hand, having them be, these reincarnations, as seen in prophecy, I think a little bit of it takes away from like the personal connection between the kids in like as you see in Adventure with them, because it's very much like they're raising, like Agumon in the first episode of the reboot is action ready. That dude is ready to go. But on the other hand, in Adventure, he's similarly confident, but he's still like, him and Ty are still like working through stuff. And I think it takes a little bit away from like, oh, these kids have to raise these monsters. But on the other hand, it as you said, it does give them a little more agency, like they're more fully formed. So they're not just like partners, they're like, oh, these are warriors that we have to, make sure like get fighting fit for whatever's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still totally possible for them to really like forefront the bond between the two characters, the human and the Digimon, without it being like the Digimon exists only to be a shadow to the human, which is kind of how it was before. So I'm hopeful that, by making them have this extra backstory, making them be kind of competent on their own before the humans get involved, that there's still good relationship building they can do.
Yeah.
I also think it's really cool because when Adventure was airing, I wasn't really aware of the deep Digimon lore at the time. But I recall hearing more recently is that like when Adventure was airing, like what was considered like in the VPETs and stuff, basically ultimate / perfect in the original Japanese, was considered like basically a final evolution, basically. Like that was the final form that every Digimon had. So then the concept of mega evolutions or ultimate in Japanese was like, oh my god, they went even further beyond. And so that's kind of why in that context it was supposed to be like War Greymon, Metal Garurumon are like exceptions. Like not every Digimon can reach mega. And the franchise, I mean, there's been inevitable power creep. And now we look back on it and we're like, they're the ones that get it? Like, come on, why doesn't everyone else get it?
Yeah.
And, tried to update that a little bit. Okay, by try, everyone gets it. Okay, but this framing where, okay, off the bat, they've introduced that, like, they're going to get back to their mega evolutions. Like, that's kind of like the other side of the fact that they're ancient warriors is that they're ancient warriors that reached mega without the humans. And I've seen people be kind of disappointed that it means that, like, are the humans actually important at that point? Because like they were able to get there without the humans. But to me, that's okay. They got there without the humans after who knows how long, like an entire life lived. And instead, they're going to get back to that point now, but in much faster way. So I think it's more fitting in our modern time now that like, yeah, it's totally standard to be expected. Everyone should have mega evolution. And now that they've set that up as like they're able to reach mega before without humans, to me that's the obvious question that raises is like, okay, now with humans, what can they reach? And I think that's the exciting direction for the series to head. Like I thought this back when we saw Megamon in episode 2, that it was like, okay, we've seen that in episode 1, so like, or sorry, episode 2. So are they saying that because then they're going to meet that point halfway through and then go even further beyond? That's what I'm excited for. And I think they're planting the seeds for that now.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It brings back kind of what I said about how it understands that there wasn't 20 years of Digimon franchise before this, and it kind of assumes that that you expect certain things.
Yes, let's keep moving through the story. So the Kugumon keep attacking, they start spinning a web, and then a school of Telamon, which is a shark-ish Digimon, starts attacking Waymon and upsetting Koshiro's little crews. So Tentamon tickles Waymon's tonsil to get them out of Waymon. Everything about this Waymon interaction was much more like cool and collected. Like they're just like, okay, we're inside here. Okay,
yeah,
you want to leave? Okay, let's hit the exit button. Like
the one thing that I like is they, how in the last episode they were all like they landed in the digital world and it was all like dinosaur themed Digimon, or like I like that they used Tylemon because the Tylosaur was a ancient aquatic reptile that kind of looked like that. So that was cool to keep that motif going of prehistoric or Digimon based on prehistoric reptiles. So I like that. Again, as a dinosaur fanboy.
It's also pretty neat to Like there are a lot of logistics to having a underwater episode that you can't really the kids can't really float around in water. But this digital network space, or Koshiro could just float around. So
Yeah.
you can have all these aquatic Digimon and still have the kids not die.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, so Koshiro notices there's these sound birdmon, which is not something I've seen before. I think I looked up the lore. They were technically in an episode of Cross Wars, but I think it's just like an image on screen to congratulate a fan on winning a contest that designed the Digimon. So I think this is their first real appearance. And they're basically controlling the Tealmon.
Are they like the Black Gear of the show?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart evolution of the Black Gear because they can control a swarm of Digimon that, the Black Gears were good for one-on-one battles because, the Digimon were restricted by they need to eat and stuff. They can only evolve roughly once a day. And so there were a lot of one-on-one battles in the original show, but now it's okay, everyone can evolve all the time, so we need big swarms of Digimon. But yeah, so Koshiro notices the sound birdmon, but Taichi and Sora do not. So anyway, Koshiro is cornered, Tentomon evolves. He gets I thought a pretty good evolution sequence where his body morphs into Kabuterimon.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of uncanny horror in the middle there where he has the tiny head and the swole body. But...
Yeah. Man, they straight up Batman Forever Kabuterimon's biceps and abs and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Where the opening of the movie is bicep shot, chest shot, ab shot.
No.
Quad shot. They really I don't know, they seem to go pretty all in on showing jacked Kabuterimon, which I was super down for. I like that a lot. I like that they showed off his muscles.
On a similar note, I had seen people making comments about Devimon when he shows up later has lots of abs. So yeah, they're really showing off the Digimon fitness here.
Yeah, he's straight up WWE wrestler. Devimon, that dude is shredded.
So then after Kabuterimon evolves, and then we see that basically Taichi and Sora are still trying to get out of the web that the Kumon trapped them in. So Piomon evolves into Birdramon and they fly out. This is Birdramon's second appearance, and I had hoped at this point that it would be a stock evolution sequence, but instead we get Birdramon basically evolving behind a cloud of smoke and then bursting out through the cloud of smoke. And I'm very conflicted about this because it was actually, I thought, staged pretty well. It was a pretty clever way to show Birdramon without an evolution sequence. And I hope that it was done that way because they knew it would work well without an evolution sequence and not because they were trying to find a way to show Birdramon appear without an evolution sequence. You know what I mean? Because I could see that this could be a good transition even if they had fully animated Birdramon and then decide not to use it because this is a better sequence. That's possible. Or also possible they have an animated Birdramon. I don't know, but we'll have to see.
No, it looked cool.
I mean, it only feels sad and disappointing because then Agumon evolves and gets his fancy...
Yeah, they get the full-on...
Yeah. I've been calling it Stockuga because it's a stock footage Stockuga sequence, but I'm worried at this point that that's the only one that's going to get that fancy sequence. Because certainly the opening is also similarly Taichi 95% of the time.
Yeah.
But it would be really cool if the other kids get that too.
I can't wait for it to be all 8 lined up and they all transform boom, 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 boom. And then we go through 45 seconds of the same Agumon to Greymon transformation. I hope they do it just to spite me. Just we heard you on the podcast and you know what we're going to do. Everyone's going to digivolve behind clouds of smoke now.
Yeah, they'll just get Agumon will evolve into Greymon and then get knocked back and then he'll have to keep evolving. So they'll just keep starting one sequence 10 times per episode. So yeah, so Greymon blows a bunch of Takugumon, and then they do this thing when they're defeated where they kind of flicker out. And I first thought was okay, they're totally illusions, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe that in this we're still learning the vocabulary of this new digital world and animation stuff. So maybe that's what it looks like when Digimon is deleted. I don't know.
The first wave of them got digitized or whatever. And then the next shot, it showed some getting blown back. So I think they got deleted. I guess
we'll see. Because I was oh, they're illusions. So who's making the illusions? And I was oh man, I guess Devimon made illusions back in the original show, but not of Digimon.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they're probably just deleted. And Kabuterimon, on the other hand, is smart enough Koshiro is smart enough to guide him to defeat the Soundbirdmon and leave the Tailmon alive. So poor Dakugumon. They did nothing wrong except be mind controlled. So that's then basically once the actions calm down, Koshiro tells him about the Soundbirdmon. This was, I thought, one of my favorite scenes in the episode was Koshiro's riding on Kabuterimon and starts to tell him that he's oh, maybe I got separated when I first came here so that I get to meet you, Kabuterimon. And Kabuterimon doesn't hear him and is what'd you say? And Koshiro's no, I don't want to repeat it. And then he just acts very tsundere.
Yeah. No, that was a good moment.
And then Ogremon reports back to Devimon, and then the real gag of the episode, Palmon's head pops out behind some trees, and then runs back to Mimi.
Her little pumpkin village.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I should have seen this coming, because like if we're following the structure of the original show, episode 4 was Sora, episode 5 is Izzy, episode 6 is Mimi. So like,
Yeah.
I really should see it coming, but I don't know. It caught me off guard.
No, it was a really good way to end it. I going back to the Ogremon thing, I'm not sure. I kind of liked his like here he talks in like short sentences.
Yeah, I'm really worried about that.
Yeah, and I missed like I don't remember exactly his voice, but he was just kind of like this weird, gross dude in Adventure. Hey guys, or whatever. But here he's just like the kids I will destroy, and then like that's that's maybe give him some actual sentences.
Yeah, I think it's even less sentence like in Japanese. Like I think that time where he says like found the kids in Japanese,
Yeah.
I think it's just mitsuketa, which is just
Yeah.
found. So it's a little, I think they just didn't want to have like 3 lip flaps and then just say
Yeah.
found. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm disappointed that he's not as fun and like campy and absurd as the original Ogremon.
The show in general is like not as like I guess a lot of the absurdity comes from kind of the dub maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But he was more of a character than like Devimon's like silent second in command here.
Yeah, I think it wasn't just the dub. Like I think it was the way Ogremon interacted with the kids was more like in a fun, scary way.
Yeah,
Like,
and he was playing off Leomon.
Yeah,
who was super like stoic and seemed like a good guy.
So I'm kind of hoping that Ogremon has such a limited vocabulary because he's being possessed by Soundbirdmon.
Yeah,
maybe.
I hope so. That sounds good.
Yeah, hopefully. Or I'm not trying to blame it too much. Like it has to do everything that Adventure did 1-to-1. If it doesn't do that 1-to-1, then it's not good. Like if Ogremon is not as fun in this version, but there's something else that's similarly fun to replace that, also great.
One thing I'm wondering about is so Devimon's like champion level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he like? Are they building him up to get beaten by the champion level evolutions of everybody, or are they building up the mega evolutions to just like body that dude when they finally meet him?
I don't know. Like especially because when Devimon was the threat in the original show, it was like everything is in this File Island world. It was like, okay, we need to get to Infinity Mountain, defeat Devimon. That's the entire world we know about. And then later it was like, okay, go to the continent next. But now they're like, go to the continent, and Devimon is here. I don't know. Like, is that maybe Devimon? That's his territory too. Is the Cloud continent? First of all, I forgot to mention how they quote unquote updated server continent or file continent in the original manga to Cloud continent. Just cool. Good 2020 update.
Cool.
It also it's a neat tie into how they're finding the Holy Digimon in Cloud continent. So yeah, I'm not sure like if Ogremon's going to be this like short early arc thing, or there's so much we don't know about how it's going to play out. Because if it follows the same pattern of being defeated by Angemon or Takaru in some way, then it seems like we're pretty far off from Takaru even being involved.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I hope like they all get their mega evolutions. They go and Devimon's like, haha, you finally found me, and Wargreymon just gonna like step on him. Like this is it. The end. Credits. End of Digimon Adventure. Hope you enjoyed it.
I mean, it's also possible that like they could start breaking rules with forms. Like it could just be like, oh, that's a Devimon champion. Here's Devimon Mega, or like something absurd like that.
I wonder because the first what's Argamon from the first 3 episodes? They're all called Argamon, even though they're like evolving into like ultimate and mega level forms, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they're gonna do something like that with like you just said with Devimon, where he's like, okay, and he just gets weirder and bigger. I'd be into that.
Yeah, I guess there's like a class of Digimon that's like all of their forms have the same name, like Agumon or oh god, I forget its name. It was in Hacker's Memory, Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory recently, Arcadimon, I think. But Waymon, I think, is the most notable example of this weird thing where it's like there's Waymon parenthesis champion and Waymon parenthesis ultimate. It's like, okay, it's just how big he is, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention about the input on this episode is how I think it's a pretty cool subversion. Like we've been referring to it as kind of like prophetic and like this prophecy of the mega evolutions, but I appreciate how it's kind of like not actually a prophecy. It's like, here's how they were in the past, and we set up these events so that hopefully you can get back to that point. But like, it's not we have ordained this vision has come to us preordained, and like here's what will happen. It is kind of like worded that way, like when Varadormon is talking, it's kind of like this happens, then this happens, and this happens. It's kind of with that kind of language of prophecy, because prophecy raised all sorts of questions of like, well, who got the information? How did they get the information? Why did they tell? Like, why did they write down the information if it's this like ancient thing? And the original Adventure had a lot of prophecies that were just kind of like, how does it? Like Devimon had a prophecy about how he would be defeated by the weakest among them, but I was like, okay, some of the prophecies in the end were explained, like made sense of how someone would know them. But other ones like that, or like Myotismon being reborn, or Apocalypse appearing, they were just kind of last minute like introduced to build up hype.
Like they'd be like celebrating their victory, and then Jinai would show up and be like, "Actually, kids, sorry,
there was another prophecy I forgot to tell you
forgot
about.
to mention that you got to go beat Apocalypse. I don't know how I forgot the most powerful creature in the history of the franchise so far. But yeah, like the kids would be like, "We beat Devimon, that's cool, right?" And Jin would be like, "Actually, you got to go to this other continent. I forgot to tell everybody." But you hear they're kind of laying out like, yeah, as you said, this is what happened. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. And in Adventure, every arc would end with them being like, "Oh, finally, we saved the world." Well, okay, don't get too excited. The world's actually in trouble again, and I've known about it for a while, and I just didn't say anything.
Yeah, I think it's a much tighter construction, and it really like benefits from, I guess, the series having a lot more like hindsight of different iterations at this point now. It's like, okay, what 20 years have passed, like what can we do with a new Digimon series? And one thing is feel less disjointed. I think to me the biggest sign of how disjointed Adventure as a whole, like Adventure 02 and Try was how Adventure could have all this like these separate arcs, and by the end they even try to tie them together. Like the Dark Masters, they revealed to be the ones that were like attacking, like Paimon was attacking Genai or whatever, and like that's how like when they split up the Digimon or whatever. And they also, I don't know if it's in the original show or if it's like in lore, background lore, or whatever, explain that like Devimon, Edamon, Myotismon, Dark Masters were all created by Apocalypse. But like they try to tie that all together. But then even with that all tied together, 02 comes in and is like, oh, by the way, there are these 4 holy Digimon that are basically the gods of our universe.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wait, what? What? There are these benevolent gods that could help out that we didn't even know about? And even though they try to explain like, oh, well, they were imprisoned by the Dark Masters. And it's like, okay, but no one mentioned it. You all knew that this happened? You all knew this existed and no one mentioned it? Okay, sure.
It's I think it is way tighter this way. I'm about to say it's fixing its mistakes, but I did kind of like they like the Myotismon arc in comparison to the other 3 like Devimon, Edamon, and Dark Masters. Myotismon is there for a while. That dude refuses to die. And then he does get like the bow or the arrow struck through him, and everybody's like, "Thank God." And then somebody says like, "Oh, there's like the 666 out of the beast. He's back." I do kind of like how frustrating that must be for 5th graders to know that no matter like what victory they have, like there's a prophecy they didn't know about.
Yeah. Like this calls to mind the early prophecy in Adventure where like Leomon sat them down and was like, "You're the Digidestined kids. You're destined to save the world." And it kind of left us like wondering the whole series like who preordained this? How were they chosen and stuff? And this at least is like jumping right to the conclusion, kind of like it's almost jumping to that, like I mentioned before, that end of the season thing where like homeostasis possesses Sakari and whatever. And so like I appreciate it's another aspect of the show, like kind of like assuming that the pre-existing fans know what's up, so let's just skip to the chase.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty cool. So we've been going pretty long, so let's get to some listener questions. So the first one came in from Andy Lucas TT, and they said, "Is it just me, or does this season feel like a hybrid of everything, not just adventure, characters of adventure, action like 02, aka kids on Digimon during fights, evolution sequence / network space of teamers, Holy Digimon Frontier?" I'll add, yeah, I think it does feel like they basically cherry pick the best elements from every bit of the Digimon franchise.
Yeah, I think so as well. The continuation of because I just got done playing Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, and you spend a lot of those games in like blue hallways, just running. And that's probably my least favorite part of the digital world, is whenever they're in like a blue area. Like I was okay with it in the first few episodes because it was new, or at least adventure, because nothing in adventure was set in that setting. It was either like forest digital world or like human world, or just kind of floating in space fighting various bad guys. But that's definitely something that showed up in later series that I kind of wish that they didn't take. But other than that, I think it's kind of cool that it's a hybrid.
Yeah, like I think Cyber Sleuth's world is really interesting for like showing basically it's very similar. Like I think they've basically for the series taken the same concept of there's the digital world and the human world, and then the network is the thing that connects the two. Yeah. But Cyber Sleuth presented that from the perspective of the humans, and was basically like, what if Digimon existed and they had kind of leaked into the network and they kind of like were affecting real world events, and how would humans observe that? Like they would see them as programs and programs they can use and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like find out, oh, they're actually living entities. Oh, there's actually a digital world, but like barely see it, like just see a glimpse of it at the end. And this is taking that same world, but like, doing the traditional adventure, like they go right to the digital world. And I appreciate that because it's like, I like narratively what Cybersleuth does of like this plausible like explanation for Digimon in the world. But I think, yeah, I would not have wanted to spend like Cybersleuth spent the entirety of the season in that blue nether space. Like, so it's good that it's like the same plausible world setup, but we're in the digital world pretty early on, and like that's where we're spending most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think back to Andy Luke's question, like I think it's not like the first series, and like I think Digimon has always been a remix of past elements. Like each season felt like, okay, let's take some of the elements from the past season, but then do things completely new. I think even Frontier, to me, Frontier always felt like, let's take the premise of Adventure, but remix it and do it in a different way. And Savers or Data Squad felt like, let's take some elements from Tamers and do it in a different way. So like Digimon's always done with past seasons, but this one feels, I think because it's been so long since a main season, and I guess Atmon kind of counts, but Atmon was trying to be different in so many different ways, whereas this is trying to be similar. So it's more apparent, I think. Now I'm gonna get to 3-word reviews, which is something that I started doing during Try, which I think was a fun way to people get in little mini reactions to the episode. So the first one came in from With the Will. This Mimato finally happened, which I don't know what they're getting at, because Mimi and Yamato, this feels like a stretch. I don't know what connection there is between Mimi and Yamato in this episode.
Tokujo says, "Be the banger."
Oh, so that one, the insert song is called "Be the Winner."
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, agree.
CC Takato said, "I need Mimi, don't we all?"
Love that Laura said #Patamon watch.
Wait, so some clarification on that. That is Patamon's voice actor. So that explains why she is so excited for Patamon.
Oh, awesome. I am also watching out for Patamon.
I think we all are. Match GC30 said Tentamon best boy.
You know what? I think for this so far, I think I'm going to agree. I find Agumon cold and unrelatable. No, he's good. No, I like Agumon in this. There's a little moment in episode 4 where Tai and Agumon are explaining something to Sora, and Tai gives her a thumbs up, and Agumon holds his hand, and I thought that was adorable. But yeah, I think Tintamon's probably my favorite, just because Tintamon, like, I'm gonna do it. Oh, I'm gonna do it. He's gonna evolve, or Digivolve in this episode. I thought it was cool. I like him.
I mean, if we're comparing the Koshiro though, like Koshiro's a better boy. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Dot Yawning says plot dump. ... tease. Yeah, that was kind of the episode.
Yeah. At Gabo Eros said, "I need more." Yep, we all do.
Marfer9 says Kabuteramon was kawaii. Indeed, I'd get that tattooed on my chest.
Jack 11 said Buff Tento boy.
Yep. I would get that tattooed below that on my chest.
And then for the final tattoo,
the Odor Mulgren said #not my Demi-Devimon, which is the first thing I thought of, where they were like, when they did like the back of him, or like I guess like the silhouette of Soundbirdmon, I was like,
yeah.
Is it Demi-Devimon? Oh boy.
Yeah, I was like, Demi-Devimon has really big wings this time. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that's probably one of my favorite moments in Adventure, where Demi-Devimon is talking like Venom Myotismon, like, "Oh, you're back, boss," and he's like, "I'm hungry," and just eats him. That's in Demi-Devimon. He's been around for 30 episodes now. He's just done now. There he goes.
Yeah. He's just like been such a constant presence, and then it's just like, oh, the boss is back, and the boss is different now. So
just eats it. Yeah,
your food.
It's kind of like when you're like the company you're working for gets bought out, and they're like, nothing's gonna change. Like under Myotismon, it was this way. Under Venom Myotismon, it's gonna be the same thing. And then he comes in and just lays you off and then devours you.
That's dark. So before we close out, I wanted to kind of give a rating for the episode out of 5 stars. How are you feeling about this?
I'm gonna give it a 4.
Sweet.
I liked it for the most part. I'm waiting for that Birdmon evolution sequence, and I really want to see what Ogremon and Devimon got cooking up. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, I really am excited to see everybody coming together. But yeah, 4 to 5. I thought it was good.
I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was pretty exciting. I feel like if it had as amazing animation as the early episodes, maybe it would be a perfect episode. But if it had Birdmon evolution sequence, but without that, it's like as much as I could have wanted out of an early info dump, and it's made me pretty excited otherwise. So yeah. And just to mention the results of our Twitter poll, this episode has most episodes have had predominantly. This is the highest percentage of 5 stars since episode 1. It's sitting now at 52%. 5 stars, and the original is 55, but the Other episodes have been as low as like 40 or 30% 5 stars. So seems like people were pretty digging it pretty well. Do you have any hopes or predictions for episode 6, the Targeted Kingdom, or the future of the show in general?
Mimi sitting on like the throne thing was super cool. I'm excited. I really I can't wait to see how they handle her character, if they switch up anything, because it seems like they will.
Yeah, my boyfriend mentioned the idea that he was thinking that maybe they're going to go down the Princess Mimi route early on, having her be like the princess of this town. And he was saying that like during the ending sequence, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't know. And then it got to the preview, and there was a literal grass throne. And I was like, oh no, oh no.
Yeah, that's my hopes for it.
All right. So if you like this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow Padages on Twitter or Tumblr if you want gifts, shitposts, and fan art. And share the podcast with your friends who live on as a lingering feather to carry on your will until you're reborn hundreds of years in the future. I'm Definitely Jeff on Twitter, and you can also check out my general anime podcast, Love It a Wee Bit, where we review new anime. We just reviewed Penguin Drum, and next week we're going to be reviewing BNA, which has dropped on Netflix.
Cool.
Daniel, thanks for coming on the show. It's been really fun having you.
Oh, no problem.
And where can people find you online and your work?
Twitter, Dan Doc, DANDOCK. I'm usually talking about Digimon or One Piece there. And you can find me on Crunchyroll. Just go to the news and features section. I'm usually around.
I think almost all the Digimon articles recently have been you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do most of them. I'm a big fan of Digimon. I like writing about it.
Sweet. All right. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with a guest to talk about episode 6, the Targeted Kingdom. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
And remember, never stop Digivolving.
虹を見つけたいなら顔を上げなくちゃって差し出さ